Hello, everybody, to this week's episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Oleksandra Vytiahlovska. Oleksandra, how you doing?
Thanks, I'm great. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Obviously, I know you go by Alex as well, so I'll probably use Alex throughout the rest of the podcast. It'll make things a little easier for me, if you don't mind.
Yes, great.
Okay, so you work at, is it Calton as a React Native developer?
I mostly work with React Native, but sometimes I work also with React. And my current position is JavaScript developer generally. So all of it, but mostly React Native.
Okay, and what do you do at Kelton, and what does Kelton do? Because that's not a company that I've generally heard of, and I feel like a lot of the audience probably haven't heard of as well.
Kelton is a big IT company from India, but I actually work in its European department, which was priorly to basically October, known as in separate name as TVX. Um, it's a software house. They work with quite big clients. For example, they are making projects for NATO, on I think. So some software house, but not for startups, for a bit bigger projects, and that's what I was looking for now.
Okay, and on your day-to-day job, what's your main responsibilities?
As for now, I'm just a regular React and React Native developer. I We have a new project, and we're just building it from the ground. So typical sprint work with tasks, code reviews, and all Scrum ceremonies.
Okay, and in terms of JavaScript, it's pretty safe to say you're, heavily into JavaScript. I would say you really like JavaScript because that's how I came across you. Was on YouTube. Was I think your React Native like app performance video, and obviously heavily that's based around JavaScript as well. So what got you into React Native, and JavaScript in general, and that sort of area.
Mm, that's even a bit funny story. I moved to Poland like around 6 years ago. Back in the Ukraine, I was working mostly in tourism. And when I moved here, I know that I want to change my life and I want to do something more stable than tourism. Because, for example, the last half year in the Ukraine, I was didn't spend any weekend at home, so it was definitely not a work for a long term run, and I knew that I want to do something that will give me satisfaction and that will not force me going out of the home or give me even possibility to travel and work from any point of the world as I want to. So I was beginning to look for something interesting. I came across testing because some of my friends from college did become testers. But while I was trying to learn testing, I came across CSS, HTML, a bit of JavaScript, and it was so fantastically interesting for me that I decided that I want to be a programmer because writing something and seeing some output on the screen was so freaking interesting to me back then. So yeah, that's how I got into programming.
So prior to that, as you was growing up, because like I say, you was working in like journalism. Like, had you ever done anything technical like that, or was that the first time that you touched it?
Uh, Basically, I wasn't working directly with technical stuff because as a journalist, I was working as a in electrotechnical newspaper, but it was kind of not that high level. Uh, and Before the journalism, actually, I was supposed to go study programming, but I was too stubborn. I was a child back then, and I wanted to do mm, something that I've chosen, and I've chosen journalism. It was a stupid idea. It was a stupid direction, but yeah.
Why did you choose journalism? Like, why that? Was it parents? Was it friends? Or did you just see it in some movie and thought it would look cool?
Uh, Everybody was convincing me to go study um, practical mathematics, it was called like that, but nobody told me that it was actually programming. I've learned about it like a bit later. I was just good at math, and everybody was expecting me to just go study math, and I didn't know what it was actually what it meant. Because in Ukraine, you go study to the university like when you have 16 years, so you're actually a child. You don't know anything about the world. And journalism was really exciting for me. I thought that it is a work that will give me a lot of movement, a lot of impressions in my life. But it turned out to be not that great because you don't have a life, you just have a job.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's from what I've heard, journalists can be very very busy, and it can be very very intense. And not that programming isn't, but it's a different type of an intensity. And I feel like
Yeah.
if you're not that passionate about it, like you don't really want to do it. It's like going into the medical field and becoming a doctor. Yes, there's good money in it, but there's plenty of other fields on. Like you're in IT, I'm sure you see money around in IT as well, where especially as contractors, you can earn more than a doctor. It's not like doctor or journalists or lawyers, as well. Like like these professional careers, I earn the most, money. They're just good earners, and but they're very very intense, the job is. And a lot of it, I guess with journalism you can do a fair bit of it remotely potentially, but a lot of the other ones like doctors, lawyers, it is very on-site work even now after COVID. So yeah, I'd say unless you really really want to do it, it's probably not the thing for you. And it sounds like that you wasn't as passionate about it as you had thought you might be. But growing up, had you not into programming, but was you into computers, into the technical side of the everyday things we use as life, or was you just not anti-technology but just not into it at all, and it was a later life discovery?
It's hard to tell. From the early childhood, I like to do some, maybe not engineering, but I don't know, to break some stuff and try to put it together and into Lego and not Barbies and so on. So maybe that's the only thing. But um, after all, when I grew up in a Ukrainian village, and we didn't have like too many computers. We didn't had any computer study in the school, any proper information about all of that. So I had a computer at home, but it was more like a computer for my father to work on it. He was a photographer. So my main contact with computer was just Photoshop. I was not playing games, not going to discover all the inner outs of that computer because I was just not allowed to. The only thing that I was allowed to do on that computer was Photoshop, so I played it with it instead of games, probably. I really liked it, but I don't know, somehow it didn't stick.
Okay. And after finishing your degree in journalism, how long did you practice and work as a journalist for before you decided, okay, this isn't for me, I'm going to transition?
I've decided that I want to transition like in on the fourth year, the year before I finished. Let's say it like this. I just got completely disappointed in that, and I knew that I wanted to do something different. I didn't know completely what I wanted to do. I was trying a lot of stuff, starting from computer graphics, going through that journalism, like because I had to do something. I finished university and I had to get some job, so I was working as an electrotechnical journalist. And after that, we were trying with my husband to do build some cool stuff in tourism. We were having our own bike tour agency. We were organizing bike trips around Ukraine. My husband even wrote bike tour guides, so we were all into that. After that, I started also to try myself in as a bus tour guide, and I worked for around a year or a year and a half in that. It was really great, but really intense. And then we moved to Poland, and I just started to look for something fresh.
Okay, and whilst when you decided to do that transition, were there any particular resources that you would recommend that helped you? Whether they were books or courses or videos online, maybe crash courses, boot camps, how did you specifically go about transitioning? Because it's not like you knew, I don't know, C++ and then you went to JavaScript where, okay, the coding fundamentals are the same, how to write code, how to use IDEs, and you've got to learn a few different things now. It's totally different. Journalism, which is a very heavy, let's say, English writing style. Obviously, depending on the language, but let's say if it's in English, yeah, writing style, degree and career. Then you go to something like programming, very very technical. And yeah. So yeah, how did you transition? Because I know a lot of people that always ask, I want to go into another field, and they don't know, but they, you know, have an interest or a desire to.
Yeah, my route was maybe not the quickest one, and maybe for someone would be not the best one because it took me around 3 years to transition. Uh, but I'm happy that I did it this way. I didn't use bootcamps because for me it was kind of too expensive. I was not too sure if I will become a programmer because my mother always laughs for me that I haven't finished anything in my life. So there was kind of a bit of expectations that I will drop this idea. So I was just, even though I was really passionate about it and I really liked it. So I started with just online resources, and to begin with, it was Codecademy. It's just like a basic. If you want to try it out, just in general, if you like programming, start there because it's really easy. And if you don't like that, don't go deeper because it will become more and more intense. And after that, I was reading actually through the documentation on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if it was the best idea to start with. Maybe it was hard, but this way I got really good basics from JavaScript. They have a really nice tutorial around JavaScript, starting from explaining objects and functions and so on, so on. So all the basics of JavaScript. After that, I found a front-end masters, and their courses are like really great. I use them also sometimes now, and also some other resources like I don't know, WebBoss tutorials, Polish authors tutorials. We have like a Polish AdoWeb, and there is one crash course on the React. It was really helpful for me. So something like that, and also while learning, trying to build something bigger, maybe not bigger, but something not only what tutorials tell you to build, because there you have everything put on the plate, so you know if you stuck, you know where to look the answer. And programming is also about um, looking those answers in not that typical places, I would say. So I was also building a website using Vanilla.js, and it helped me really a lot to go deeper into understanding how it works and into understanding all the web APIs and so on. And also building like some smaller projects, like Something silly, even like I don't know. One of my projects was taking NASA photos from Mars and displaying them with interesting animations. So um, maybe not that practical, but good enough to practice your knowledge that you got from course in something that was not laid out in that course. So something like that.
Okay, and these stuff that I've seen, like online, you talking about JavaScript, React Native. How did you get involved in those talks and that side of it?
When I was learning, I kind of knew that I have to pick up at the begin to start with some framework. So it was either Angular, React, or Vue at that time. So I'm not sure even how I did this decision. Maybe basing on some articles that Angular is dying, but also it's maybe not dying even now, and that Vue is not that production ready, which was also not true. So that's maybe how I got into React, and I really liked it. And React Native actually. I've started to use it already at my first job. So I was not planning to learn it. I was planning to be a web developer, even though when I started to learn JavaScript, I was at some point I wasn't even not knowing where I can use JavaScript. At some point, I got into the information that JavaScript is only for writing web pages, and I was like, so sad because I wanted to do mobile applications, not web pages. But okay, I've already put some work into learning that, so I will start with web development. But then at first, I, after learning, of course, deeper and deeper, I knew that there is such thing as React Native, but I decided to not take it at the start because I know that to get my first job, I had to have a really great knowledge in one basic technology, not general into every framework available there because it was just not useful because you had to prove that you are good because finding first junior job is hard and yeah. So actually React Native I started to use on my first job. We had um, my team was supporting multiple projects for one client, and we had React Native app that nobody was taking care of. It was laying on the shelves for a couple of months, and then our team manager just decided to, okay, who wants to take a look at it? And of course, I was first to want to take a look at it. They gave me ability to just ability in time to just learn React Native while working with that application, and that's how I got into it.
Okay, and you know, it's interesting that you're talking about you're thinking about React Native, Angular, and Vue.js. That's still a very relevant discussion, today for developers. Either if they're starting out in their career and they're thinking, okay, which route do I go down? Because it is very much, yeah, you can learn all three, and it's worth checking them out. But it is like, okay, if you go down the React Native route, you can have, at least right now, have a whole career based around that, get paid well, and not really have much issue. Again, if you go down I mean, not the JavaScript, the Vue or the Angular route, you can have your whole career, based around that. The way you can have a whole career based around game development, around mobile development, around web development. Those frameworks are that powerful. What advice would you give to someone today that's looking to make that decision? Plus, also, if the advice is different for somebody that's looking to, who's already a code, and they're looking to work on a project maybe for a client, and they're thinking, okay, I can choose the framework React, slash React Native, Angular, or Vue. Which one do I go for?
Um, I would say pick one and become really good at it, because when you will start your career at some point, when you will be just a good JavaScript developer, you can always make that transition to Vue, or if, for example, if there will be like, let's say you will become React developer, React will be dead and you will lose your job. That's not a possibility. If that will be some kind of reality, you will always be able to become a good developer at Vue or at Angular or Svetel or any other frameworks. You just need something for the start. So it's just not that important what you choose for start. You can try all of three, choose whichever feels most comfortable for you to work with. Maybe not Angular at this moment, because as far as I've noticed on the job market, there are not that many jobs. It's possible to find it, but not that many as in React or Vue. Maybe also I was just maybe my filtering was working wrongly, so I'm not 100% sure that it is like that, but still, maybe like that. But just the most important, pick one and don't try to be good at everything on your first job. You will get there, but later.
Yeah, I think that's definitely good advice. You are gonna take a bit of time for you to get to a position where you are really good, and it's also good advice to pick one. Out of those three, there's not really that much of a wrong answer per se, but you've just got to stick to it, like Alex was saying. Become master that effectively. Everything around it, and once you're at that position, you can transition. What I will say, from what I've seen as a time as my time as a contractor and interact with clients, is that if, let's say, you're heavy in React Native, even though technically, yeah, you could really go in and work on a Vue project or an Angular project with maybe a bit of self studying if need be, most clients won't employ you unless you do have those 3-5 years experience in that framework. It's just the way it is. And because they're usually going through recruiters, and recruiters are just echoing that notion. So if you try and explain to them that, okay, I've got React Native experience for 5+ years, I can easily do Angular, it's not a problem. You're gonna struggle. So though, yeah, you can transition, unless you are already at a position, a job position where they need you to transition and you don't need to interview for something, or you are working on your own project and you decide, okay, and I want to try Angular, or I need to try Angular, or you work on a project that's already existing and you have access to it. Otherwise, I'd say it'll be difficult to transition, not for a technical reason, just for the reason that employers do want multiple years of experience around these frameworks because they've been around for multiple years now. So I would say that's just one thing to bear in mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally true. You can get lucky, and as you said, if your current uh, contractor or your current employer uh, needs you to transition, then you're lucky. I had a chance to transition to Flutter because in my second job we were learning Flutter in internal project, and there was a chance that they might want me to go do it in a client project, not only in internal. But that's, as you said, that's more rare cases.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, what's your opinion on TypeScript? The industry in general is going that way. React Native, I think version 0.71 made TypeScript the default language. Have you used TypeScript much? I'm guessing you have. And what is your opinions on it?
For me, basically, JavaScript and TypeScript, it's just the same. I haven't used like clear JavaScript for, I don't know, maybe, yeah, probably from the time when I was learning programming. I now always use it with TypeScript. I can't imagine using it without, because it's just easier. You have better intelligence in your code editor. You have type safety and all of the benefits. So, yeah, TypeScript, as in my opinion, is just must have.
Okay, and again, if somebody's starting out, would you recommend them to go straight to TypeScript, or would you recommend that they learn JavaScript, know how to utilize that, and then just upgrade the skills a bit by, I don't know, reading a book or watching a few videos or doing a project in TypeScript? Which way would you go around? Because though the web is heavily, and mobile stuff is heavily, app, like React Native stuff is heavily going TypeScript, there's still a lot of JavaScript usage out there, and I feel like that's not going away anytime soon.
I would definitely recommend going, starting with vanilla JavaScript, and even the things that I've done, like writing project, not using any frameworks, not using any uh, compile tool. I was at first starting it with ESM modules, so uh, do it this way, and this way will give you. With starting right away with TypeScript and writing your project with just vanilla JavaScript plus TypeScript is also possible, but you will have a lot more to dig into, a lot more to understand. So it would be too much. So great would be to get your great basics in vanilla and then add a TypeScript, because it's not like TypeScript is, in my opinion, very intuitive, and at least so that minimum that you will need in your first junior job, you will be able to get from, as you said, a couple of courses, one tiny project with it to just grab your hands around it, and it will be okay for the first job. But the basics of language is the most important.
Yeah, I mean, I think I, agree there as well. And again, follow up question: if again somebody's starting out, obviously some sort of framework if they're going down, the web route, and especially the front end route, JavaScript, and then eventually porting that over to, or upgrading their skills with TypeScript. What else would you recommend? I'm sure there's other stuff, other languages, other frameworks, cloud, IDEs. Yeah, what IDE do you use? What do you recommend? Like OS, Linux, Mac, Windows, like the whole system of programming. What are your recommendations?
Okay, so don't get too many things. Try to limit them, because it was also my problem at the beginning that I was trying. I even had some like roadmap how to become a front-end engineer, and I was trying to dig into everything. And yeah, it's nice to know tooling around that will help you, something like ESLint, Fleetr, and so on. But know it in the basics, what it is, how it's used. Most likely that you won't be setting up it in your first project. When you will be a junior developer, there will be somebody who will set up all of the, if there will be a need, because it's also modern development. You don't that often use Webpack or something else. So all of that tooling will be set up in the project for you. So know it, know how to handle errors from it, but don't go too deep into it. Because, for example, I was digging too deep into Webpack, and that knowledge probably never ever was useful for me. Uh, yeah, I was setting up my personal project with it, but in real life, I don't think I ever used it, because it's heavy, it's hard to find use cases when you really have to use it. And I was setting up projects quite a lot by myself from the start in the business environment. So yeah, uh, get good in the tools that you're using in your everyday life. So IDE. I'm using VS Code, and I'm really happy with it. So would be very useful to do some course and read some documentation around what VS Code can do, because there are a lot of stuff that will make you more productive if you will know them. And also get used to shortcuts. Maybe it's not always something. that is very straightforward for the one who is working in the programming for a longer time to use keyboard shortcuts. But from the person who is coming from like soft background as I was coming, it was maybe not that obvious at that start, but it's something that makes your work really easier. And also get better at terminal, because I know some developers that use graphic interfaces for everything. Yeah, you can do it. You can live with only graphic interfaces, but knowing terminal, knowing how to set up and get your head around there will give you more confidence and less stress when you will have to do something there in the terminal, because there will always be some situations. And also, as for me, terminal makes me more productive. So that's basically it. The most important sub language, except your framework, would be terminal. Uh, IDE and developer tools. That's also very important. If you work with web, so basically Chrome developer tools would be the best choice to dig deeper into it. React developer tools. And if you're working with React Native, then it's hard because there are a lot of developer tools and it's changing right now. So yeah, deeper topic.
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree, with what you're saying as well, that there's so many tools, check them out, but don't go so deep into some of these ones. You mentioned, Webpack, or, whatever it is, or it could be like something like SAS or SC, double S, and yet those tools are really good to understand and know of. I think it's more important that you know that they exist, what they do, and ideally have a little grasp on using them. The reality is, when you go and go for a job or a role, specifically, the core things they are asking for is React Native, JavaScript, TypeScript, GraphQL,
Yeah,
maybe, Redux, particular backend technologies. And if they, do ask, do you have, do you know, SAS? As long as you've, had a look at it and you know what it is, I don't think there's any harm in saying, yeah, you know it, because it's not a hard thing to start using. Or some of those other ones, they're not that important. It really is the React Native. That's what they want to see. The employers want to see that, okay, you've done multiple projects, commercial, professional projects, using those technologies, and you've got references, and you've got, let's say, a GitHub portfolio with loads of those projects in React Native, JavaScript, TypeScript, that sort of stuff. That is going to be a lot more useful for you than knowing, like you said, Webpack or WebAssembly, or SAS, or something like that.
yeah, exactly. And maybe also the one tiny thing, don't ignore CSS and HTML. It's important to also have good basics there, especially in CSS, because it can be weird and it can save you in a lot of ways if you will know all of the deep and nested things there.
Oh yeah, and so, as a developer, have you ever thought about going into another area of programming? Something a bit more mobile native, like Kotlin or Swift, or even older school like Java and Objective C, or game development. Because
Uh,
even the mobile side that you're doing is still kind of like a branch of web that's now on mobile. Like React Native is still very web-like.
Yeah, that's actually my goal for the next year. I really dream to go to more native side of things in the mobile development. I didn't had time and possibility in last year. I was involved in very web mobile mixed project, and I didn't had time and space after work also to dig into it. But now when I changed job, and I also know that in this job they want me also probably partly to go in that direction, because it was something that we discussed before I started. So yeah, I will be trying to learn probably Kotlin and probably Swift, or maybe, as you said, go even deeper with Objective C or something like that. But actually, at the moment, I'm trying starting first from the basic because um, I'm a self-learner, and I always felt that there is something deep basics that I'm missing, mainly computer science, and I'm trying to uh, cover that up. So I'm doing some courses, reading books around it. So after that, I will go into the mobile development, hopefully.
Okay. And is that something that, you definitely want to go into the future, going forward and transition away from, React Native, website and make that transition as your permanent career?
I don't think that it's that easy and that possible as we mentioned before, because it's even harder. You're not changing the framework, you're changing the language totally. So it would be really hard to convince employers that you are capable of doing native development fully. So for me, it's more knowing the basics also in this side. So because React Native, it's just something that sits on top of those native technologies, and I want to know that deeper and know how it functions. And I think that it will help me to understand more and better React Native, and maybe go deeper into something like that, maybe do some contributions to maybe not the core of React Native, but some libraries and so on. It would be interesting for me.
So, as developers, many of us do stuff like career contracting, that sort but then we'll have our own personal projects that we work on. Either they're just purely personal and we do it for fun, or we'll do it in the hopes that one day you'll get a bunch of downloads, make some money, and you'll be able to make a business of it. Do you do anything like that? Any personal projects?
Honestly, no. I always wanted, I always started, but I always got too deep into the designs of that. While I was making designs, it was becoming too annoying for me. So, nope, I'm not doing it. The only development from in my spare time that I do is just learning, as for now. But I do plan to I do hope that I will find time and space to work on some personal projects because honestly, uh, my life is not only about programming. I love programming, it's my passion at work, but sometimes it's too much for me to take it after work also. And when I work my 8 hours, sometimes it's too much for me, and I want just to go and read a book or just go for some sports. Or I'm traveling a lot, and it always so takes a lot of my time. So, yep. But I'm hoping to change it a bit because I know that it's important for my personal development.
So, in terms of the learning side, what's the main thing that you're learning right now outside of your job?
Uh, it's a course on computer science. I found a course from Harvard on the edX platform. It's free, and yeah, that's what I'm trying to dig through, but it's giant.
Okay, and how are you finding, edX, for someone that might want to use that platform from learning? Have you used any other ones like Skillshare or Udemy, or something free like YouTube? How does it compare if you've used them?
Well, I've used a lot of them because while I was learning, I was looking for the courses all over the places. I was using also Udacity. It's a great platform also. Actually, they have a great course there on DevTools in Chrome, for example, and on web performance. So there are a lot of great free courses also. Um, why edX? I was just wanting to find something in computer science, kind of university level. Because I was always having some complexes around not having a computer science degree, and I just wanted to do it, but I didn't want to go to the regular university because I somehow believe that doing it online from the lectures from Harvard will give me a lot more values than going here to the local university and studying here, because maybe I'm wrong, but just taking in mind my uh, previous local university degree, I don't believe in them, and that's why I've chosen FedEx.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's you can have a lot of high hopes for a formal education and degrees and the opportunities they'll open up for you, and then you get it or you go through it and you're like, okay, it didn't really do much.
Yeah.
Especially as a developer, like there's some fields like being a lawyer, being a doctor, being an accountant, where yeah, you need formal education and you need to top that up with formal education. You can't really get around that if you want a career in those industries. But whereas a programmer, again, I know people that have a bachelor's, a master's, and then all the way into a PhD, and then I know people that never touch coding until they were like 20 something, and then they did like a 180 from one field to the next, like yourself. And like, so some people, obviously, you had a degree and you did a 180. I know people who didn't even have a degree and then they did a 180. So it is one of those really interesting fields where you can have someone that may have like 2 years ago decided to become a coder, fully engrossed themselves. It's not easy. It is difficult. And there's a lot of pain and sweat, blood, and tears that will go into those 2, 3, or however many years that you pursue it, and you build your portfolio, maybe do some free work or some cheat work, and then it gets to a point where when you've got your portfolio and maybe you've done 1 or 2 years somewhere. Again, maybe it's either cheap work or you volunteering, because at the end of the day, if you've got 2 years experience working on a project, even if it's part-time, that's 2 years of experience. You don't need to put on your CV that you did it for free or that you did it cheaply. Like if you've got experience in React Native for 2 years, that's 2 years of experience, and that's not going to hold much less weight than somebody who has 2 years plus a computer science degree. I'd say probably a little bit of it'll be a little less weighty. It's like if having the computer science degree and having the couple of years in doing React Native is 100 in terms of like the weight, the power of it. The other thing might be 90, 95. Like it's most of the way there. And for some employers, it'll just be 100. And for some employers, they might even be more impressed because if they're, you know, sit back and they'll say, okay, this person didn't go to university. They have the confidence to, at the age, whatever age, let's say 25, 30, do that shift and to make you successfully and to be now here in the interview stages. That's impressive. So it's definitely doable, and that's one of the great things about our industry is that you can do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely agree. And also, not to do some wrong ideas for the new starters. I don't recommend learning computer science at the start. I just feel that I'm at the point that I need it to just grow more and understand programming deeper, but don't do it at the start. It's not something that will get you a job. Do better, as you said, some free stuff, free project for someone. One of my projects was just an art gallery for my parents-in-law because they are artists and they didn't even need it and use that page, but it was just an idea and material for me to build it. And yeah, so just find anyone who does anything and do a page for him. It will give you much more value.
So, as someone that's done this 180, gone from journalism now into a successful career in programming, we've talked about some of the languages, technologies, and frameworks that you should learn. How else can somebody that's looking to make this switch better position themselves to be employable? Like, are there any particular projects you would recommend them doing or working on, or platforms other than LinkedIn to be, part of? Like, what would you recommend to really make yourself stand out and make employers think, okay, this person doesn't have a degree, but in computer science or some sort of engineering field, but it doesn't matter. This person's still a solid candidate.
It's a hard question right now because I know that market is like not very welcoming even for middle developers or even seniors. Sometimes it's hard to find jobs, so it's definitely time to look for a junior job and to stand out.
In general, the market is slow right now in general because the the way the economy is, and plus because it's approaching Christmas. But I'm just saying in general, like what advice would you give, and things that you recommend.
First of all, don't give up. It will take a long time. For me, it was half of the year sending CVs, and I've sent because I was starting in a similar time. I was starting when just COVID began, and all of the junior positions were closed because nobody was prepared to fully remote work and to work with juniors in this fully remote work. So I've sent like around 125 CVs or something like that. And to stand out, first of all, read about this company. Don't send these CVs in packages because if you have one general CV that you never adjust to the job offer, you will just not stand out. So try to really do CV per job offering, pointing out the things that you know that will be useful there, like your technologies, your experiences, some links to your projects that you've done in the similar technologies if they are looking there. Um, for me, it was maybe silly, but I was doing also design in styles of the company. So to just grasp eye of the HR at the first second that they will look into that CV, I was putting the logo of the company, adjusting colors and so on. I was also, of course, spending an enormous time on these CVs because I didn't have their regular job. I quit just to find a job in programming. I had an opportunity to do that, and I'm very thankful to my husband for this opportunity. But yeah, spend time on personalizing CV and try to, while you are looking at this job, because it will take time, try to do as much side projects as you can in the technologies that you see that often appear in the requirements of the company. So, for example, when I was starting, I saw that quite often they were asking for testing, and a couple of companies had that in their requirements. In one job interview, I had questions around that, so I just started a new project with testing from the ground up to the end-to-end tests, from units to integration and so on. And while I was looking for the job, I was also learning testing, and that really helps me even till now. So yeah, something like that.
So, talking about testing, what's your approach to testing, and what's your favorite, because ultimately testing, its goal is to make sure that the product is robust, is to, figure out as quickly as possible the, problems or the shortcomings of a particular piece of software or application that you've made. So, what are your go-to ways of testing? Web applications, mobile application, React Native, JavaScript, any particular tools, or methodologies.
The best methodology in React relative is, of course, React testing library or React native testing library. For me, still, the courses from Kenzie Dots is the go to first learning resource that you can ever get about tests because I really like the approach testing things the way that user will be using that application at the end. But of course, testing is not something that you will do on each job because actually in my career at first job I was doing a lot of testing because we were supporting project as I mentioned for one client, and it was more like not software house job but more product job. But if you will get your first job in software house, and it's really a good place to start, in my opinion, then it's high probability that you will never ever even touch test, because in the short MVP projects, there is almost no time and space for testing, especially if you work with small clients with small budgets. They need to deliver that MVP fast, and let's be honest, also not all MVPs will live forever and will live after that testing starting period, after going live. So not all of them need tests, and tests maybe are a good thing to have after that first release. Then convince the business side that if we are sure that we will stick longer with this product, let's start testing, let's start improving our code base. Because yeah, on the MVP you might had moved too fast and done too many of tech debts, and after MVP then it will be a good time to fix it. But also you can get into the lucky position as I am right now, so working for bigger clients which have time and space for testing. So that's why I'm also happy about my new job, having the ability to test.
So one thing I want to talk about is, like I said, you did a degree in journalism. You made a switch to the more technical side of the world, programming. If somebody's listening to this and they're not interested in programming, but they're actually interested in journalism, because you finished your degree, you worked in journalism, recommendation would you give to them? Somebody that's actually looking to get into journalism.
um, to be really passionate about it, to not expect that you. It depends on which journalism, because why I decided that it's not for me. I was working in the radio station, not working, like kind of having practices as a student. And I was looking to all of those people who were working also on the TV channel there, the TV news, and they all were almost living in this radio station and TV channels office. Their lives were breaking. They were all divorced, all almost divorced, and so that was really sad for me, because I wanted to have my life beside job. Job was supposed to be for me just a fun way to have money. So if you're not ready for that kind of involvement, that job will take almost all of your time and not it will be just fun way to earn your money, to do something interesting and have some time after that, don't. Maybe journalism is also not for you. But there are also a lot less involved journalism, as I don't know, some copywriting, some writing to some specific blogs on the internet. That might be something for you if you want to write. But mm, for me, this I got into that because of I was looking at that intense life, but it turned out to be not my piece of cake. And also, journalists need to communicate a lot. Of course, developers too, but still. I had some blockers, for example, when I had to call someone and take an interview. It was a really big problem for me back then. Now, maybe not that much, but back then it was really a problem. So, if you're more like an introvert, maybe don't consider a journalist.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Our field definitely does attract a lot of introverted people. Not that there aren't extroverted people in our industry. I've met plenty, and they're doing very well for themselves. But yeah, it is a very introverted industry, generally speaking. And then something obviously like journalism makes sense. Obviously, if you're constantly speaking to new people, and you might have to be, persuade them to talk to you or get some information out of them, very quickly, being introverted probably isn't the best thing. And I think it's a shame that this isn't the sort of stuff that they talk about at uni or even before uni. That okay, your personality, is it introverted or is extroverted? Yeah, you can work on changing that. One, how much do you really want to work on changing that? If you don't, then okay, this particular field probably isn't for you. I think that's definitely something that is missing from
Yeah.
formal education, is figuring out, okay, how are you as a person? What do you want from your life? And how much are you willing to change certain aspects of your life? I think that in itself helps, heavily shape the type of career and industry you want to go into.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, fully agree. And when maybe one more thing about journalism, why I didn't like it, because there were a lot of people who didn't like me at the start just because I was a journalist, especially in some governments and so on. So there you are at the start an enemy just because you are a journalist. Even if you want to ask something nice from them, they don't like you. So if you don't like to be disliked, don't go to journalism.
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously in movies, it is always betrayed. As soon as they hear that you're a reporter or a journalist or a news writer or something along those lines, it's like, we don't want to talk to them. They're the bad people. And yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, if you don't have the stomach for having either a lot of rejection or a lot of dislike thrown your way for no reason, then yes, definitely, probably isn't your field. And you can't really get around the side of you are going to have to interact with people, and you're probably going to get a lot of shit thrown at you because people don't want to talk.
Yeah. And that's a plus in programming because mostly in programming, everybody is very polite and also respects you as a specialist. So that's a really nice thing for me.
Oh yeah, our field a bit, is definitely a bit different that way. Obviously, you do get some people that aren't the nicest, even within our field, but I think you get that in general. It's just obviously
Yeah.
something like journalism, that sort of notion how people are towards journalists is very widespread. It's not the rarity, it's it's the norm.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, as we're nearing the end of our podcast, that's mainly what I wanted to cover today in terms of questions around your, professional career. What I always do at the end is a rapid fire round of fun questions. But before I do that, again, I know I've asked for a lot of advice that you would want to give to someone. Wrapping up before we do the fun questions, is there any one piece of particular advice that you would want to give to a either a junior developer or someone that's thinking about doing programming from your
um,
experience? Because again, you've gone through it, but you didn't go through the typical university route of getting a computer science degree and then going through junior developer, etc., etc. You learned on your own back, and I think that can be very powerful, and it's an experience that a lot of people may want to have and go through that route, but they're unsure because there's a lot of uncertainty.
believe in yourself. That's maybe the most important thing. Because what helped me, I was always convinced that I can learn anything. Just depends how much time I will need to spend on it, how much effort I will need to put in it, and that's basically it. And I can learn, I don't know, even uh, molecular physics, for example. Uh, just the main question is, do I need it? Is it fun for me? And that's it. So believe in yourself. You can learn anything. You can do anything. Just stop from time to time to re-evaluate it. If you still really likes it, if it's still worth it, and if it is, go forward, fight for it. It might take time, but it's really rewarding at the end.
Okay, I mean, I think that's really good advice. Just being disciplined. Just focus on it, and don't give up. there, because I think that's just good advice in general in life. Whatever you're trying to do, because if you do work on it hard enough and long enough, there's a very good chance you will get somewhere and succeed with it. Whereas if you just keep trying something and then you don't quite get there and then you give up and then try something else, you're just not really digging deep enough to actually get to that oil. You're just digging multiple holes, and sometimes you're just that little one dig away from hitting, that gold, hitting the oil. And I think that's definitely something that people should take away from this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like I was saying, one of the things I always do is a rapid fire round of fun questions. And are you ready for that, Alex?
Yes, I hope.
Okay. So, if you was to run your own company, let's say a digital agency, but it could be whatever company you want, would you rather run a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company, and why?
Hmm. Uh, I think I would run the smaller one, just because it's more close connections with the people. And also, when you run a really, really big company, it always comes with a cost of burnout. So, nope, thanks. I want my home life and I don't want to burn out.
Okay. And would you rather have? I do, US dollars to make it easy. Would you rather have 5 million US dollars up front or 500,000 a year for the rest of your life, and why?
Mm. Probably half of for the rest of my life, just because to have stability. Um, I know that I can have invest and so on, but I will be stressed around it, and having stability is more important for me.
Okay. And favorite board game, movie, and video game.
Um, Board game, unfortunately, I don't play that much. So nope, no. Video movie, oh my god. Um, I really like all of the Marvels, so anything from it. And computer game, probably Spyro from the childhood, but I don't play games a lot too.
Okay. I mean, have you watched? I'm trying to think. What was the latest Marvel movie came out? Was it the Marvel?
The Marvels, yeah,
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 that
I
was the
watched it.
latest one, was it? Wasn't it? What did you think of that movie?
It's great, but not that great as it was before. It's really funny, it's really nice, it's really pleasant. I really enjoyed it. But before, it was like more spectacular. All of those fights with like gods from other planets and so on. It was like really big. And now those films are coming more closer to the series that they make. They're great. I watch all of the series also, but it's not that spectacular anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like Marvel, the quality of their movies has, diminished over the years. Like, I feel like there's before Endgame and after Endgame, and I feel like after Endgame, the quality of the movies has, gone down.
Yeah, I agree. It's not maybe that bad because I still like them. I still have fun watching them, but it's not that what they were starting
Oh yeah, no, 100% they weren't. So,
with.
final question, it's two-parter. Does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
Uh, Money doesn't buy you happiness, but they give ability to um, live your life the way you want. Um uh, and the second part was
What does a good life mean to you?
um, good life for me is a lot of traveling. I always dreamed to visit maybe not the whole globe, but hopefully, and right now I'm finally at the point where I'm starting doing it. So hopefully, all of the laws and everything, every complication around it uh, will not be there, and I will be able to do that.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a great way to, wrap up the podcast. Alex, I want to thank you for coming on today. I think it's been really insightful for the listeners, especially people that are looking to make either that transition or they're at the start of their career, and to understand, from someone that's done it and done it relatively recently, how you made that transition. So, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks a lot for getting me here. It was really pleasure.
And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of FireDEV. And I'll see everyone next week. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.